Welcome to Life Unfiltered. My guest today is Estee Cohen, a longtime friend, mother, and business owner of a successful staffing agency, California Job Shop. Estee completed her master's degree in educational administration with an emphasis on curriculum design. She went on to teach for 7 more years and realized while starting down a medical career path that she was more interested in the business of recruiting physicians than being one. In 2013, Estee founded her own agency. She has now scaled significantly with over 10 employees and an average of 10 job placements per week. In 2023, through some serious shakeups, one including a major medical condition which we get into today, Estee restructured her business, took on a CEO so she could focus on her family and other ventures. The episode today references a book that she's working on, which is called Miss Rose is Worried. It's not out for publishing yet, but when it is, I will share it with you. Estee lives in Los Angeles with her 5 children and her husband. Enjoy. Today's episode is sponsored by Lark Floral and Event Design. They are Los Angeles-based, dear friends of mine, and big supporters of Life's Looking Good. Simcha and her team work closely with you and your coordinator to curate elevated, bespoke, and truly unique events. Nothing is too big or too small. If you could dream it, they can build it. This isn't lip service. She does all of my events, including Lila's upcoming bat mitzvah. They also offer individual arrangements, weekly special events, and they deliver. Use code LLG for 5% off your next purchase. We're starting off already unprofessional.
Just get it together.
Welcome in today, Estee. I'm so thrilled you could do this. We talked about maybe having you on the pod. We rocked the fridge back and forth. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm excited for people to meet you. And I wanted to ask you, why did you say yes to this? Doesn't feel like something you typically say yes to.
I say no to things a lot. Do we know how much I love you and root for you?
Okay.
And I have known you many, many years. So if it's something that will delight you, I'm here for it.
How long have we known each other?
I met you when I was 14 in Morristown, CGI.
That's right.
I went to that camp with no friends.
Okay.
I just hopped on a plane and I went to work in a camp. And I was 14 and I ran the kiddie camp.
How did you even get associated with Morristown? Because you're not Chabad and you're from California. So what was that link?
Okay, so my family calls itself Chabad light, like super light.
Adjacent.
Yeah. So Chol Yisrael, we kept Chol Yisrael. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Kabata, that's something. Something. We also watched MTV and did whatever we wanted.
That's very Chabad, actually.
It's very, you know what? It fits it perfectly. So my sister is married to Levi Solomon.
Okay.
And Mendy Solomon is his brother, who at that time ran CGI.
That's right.
And I met you. You were so fun. You were like a delight.
You were the fun one. I thought you were the fun one. Also because, when you grow up in a small town and you grow up with the same people and you see the same faces, camp was a little different because you had some new rebirth and counselors came from all over. But I had never met anyone like you. You were so, and we're actually going to get into this a little bit later on, but you were so fully self-expressed even at a young age when a lot of it, I certainly was struggling with, and maybe I didn't let on, maybe you too. I was really a nervous, insecure young person. You seemed like you just were so confident and always very happy. Were you truly a happy kid?
Okay, so my baseline is happy.
Okay.
So to bring me down, it has to be a lot. I feel like in general, I wake up and I'm pretty cheerful.
Yeah.
I think that's just how I was created. And then confident, I always had a lot of confidence.
Yeah,
it never went away. And I just thought you were so fun, so creative, so unique, so outgoing. You had a friend named Adina, right? Who was your person.
Yep.
And I remember that we had color war and you were on separate teams. And this was a huge tragedy.
Color war has torn many friendships apart.
Color war's got to go. What are we doing?
I actually am not a huge fan of color war.
No.
I always lost my voice. I didn't sleep. I got sick. My whole life hung on the verdict of that color war.
Yeah. It's insane. Why don't we just make a joint play and song? Why are we fighting against our fellow Jew?
Yes. This is what I talked about in this pop for about competitive, healthy competition. Like, where do we draw the line?
Color war's got to go. Step one.
So let's take it way back. You have a history. Your education was primarily in education, largely focused around curriculum development, and then you taught for 7 years. Talk to me about why you stopped teaching.
Well, I started teaching because
Talk to me about why you started teaching.
Yeah, let's start there, and then we'll talk about stuff.
Yeah.
So I started teaching because I always loved school. Okay. I like school supplies. I like talking. I like little kids. It was just easy for me to go into that. And my parents, once you're married, you don't get any money. So I had to find a profession that I could make a decent living right away. And I didn't know that much. My father was a dentist. He actually retired last year.
Wow.
So until 75 years old, he was a dentist. And I knew about lawyers and secretaries and accountants, but I didn't know what was out there at all. Okay. I just didn't. No one ever talked to me about it. I needed something I could do right away, get paid, enjoy it, have a good day. And then I later went back for a master's degree because I thought, well, maybe I'll be a principal. I like education. What made me stop? Okay, so I did it until I was 25. And you're like, how did you get 7 years, right? Yeah. I turned 26 that summer. So that gave me another year. And I worked as a teacher while I was in college.
Okay.
That just shows you what private schools will hire, right? I was 18.
But yeah. I mean, if you have the skills, I'm not an ageist. Okay. If you're a good teacher, and I would get the sense that you'd be a great teacher, don't you feel well, hello, you do this for a living. It's not an age, right? It's a capability thing.
It's a capability, yeah. I mean, I really love teaching, and I actually hired one of my former students, and I did the very best I can. I worked very hard. But I did have the sense that in 20 years, if I'm still teaching, I would be disappointed in myself. And that came about, there was a big celebration for a teacher who had been my first grade teacher. She got an award for being there for 30 years. And instead of me being like, yay, I was like, wow, that's not what I wanted for myself.
Yeah.
I was very ambitious. I was trying to always come up with new ideas, things to sell, things to do. I always had side projects going on, and I wanted more for myself. So it happened in a very lucky way that I had a toddler. I was pregnant with my second kid. I was in partial labor at 30 weeks, so that was risky for me. And my husband's business had been doing well enough for me to quit and decide. And I think a lot of times people get stuck in their very first career because they have no choice. It's like, what, I'm going to go flounder around? I can't go back to school. I can't do anything else because this is what I chose when I was 18 years old.
Right.
And now I'm stuck forever. And I did have the opportunity to take a minute and think, what else do I want?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a unique opportunity and very cool.
Very blessed.
So you had a good run. I get the sense you were probably such a good teacher.
So nice.
And then was there a long lull? Did you chill for a while or did you jump right into the next thing?
I did not chill.
Why does that not surprise me?
I like to be very, very busy with things.
Yeah.
I thought, because I'm from a very science family, my brother's a physicist, my sister's a nurse practitioner, my father's a dentist, my brother's a dentist. We can go on through the siblings of Everyone was super science-based. I was like, well, what if I just go to medical school? That would be cool. So I did the prereqs for medical school for 2 years. And even though I can make good grades, right? I can memorize things, I can do all that. It was not a fit for me. It didn't come to me naturally. When I'm skilled at problem solving and managing people and big picture, I'm not someone who follows instructions step by step by step. I find that very hard. And when people want me to do that, I'm like, well, we're measuring and this is so annoying. Let's just cut to the chase. But you can't cut to the chase in medicine. You have to follow instructions. Yeah. And that was very challenging for me. Even I was taking microbiology. I was like, oh God, we gotta look at this. I always was trying to find a way around it.
Yeah.
And that does not fly.
In medical school.
Oh, no, right. Or in accounting.
No, accounting's another one you really don't want to go around it.
Even hair dye. You can't
That's
just
true.
like cut
Formulas.
to the end. You have to follow instructions.
Yeah.
And that.
But you're such a like rule follower. It kind of
am a rule-
surprises me. Like, and you make good grades and you memorize stuff. I mean, knowing what I know about you, I guess it makes sense that I could see you're also like probably quite impulsive, a little impatient. But it just surprises me. If anyone could get through medical school, I feel like you would.
I think if I did it the first time around, maybe I would have more patience for it. But just understanding the way I think, again, if you want something to be solved, I can solve it. But if you say, first do this, then this, then this, and it really matters the order you do it,
Yep.
I will not be good at it.
Right. So you stint in medical school,
Just the
prereqs.
prereqs. I didn't even get
Right.
that far.
Okay.
And then I applied on Craigslist to be a recruiter for physicians. And I got the job right away. Big company, fancy company, you wear your heels, walk around, be cool,
Yeah.
right? When you worked for, you were a rep
Yeah.
for medical supplies.
Yes.
Did you feel cool?
I felt very cool.
You were very cool.
Sometimes like it felt less cool when I was like pitching doctor stuff and they were like spitting their lunch on me. And like there were moments where I definitely didn't feel cool. But overall saying I was like a pharma rep, and also because, like there's a specific look associated with pharma
Pharma
rep.
reps are hot, in case everyone doesn't know that. Like if you say you're a pharma rep,
Like-
you're probably good looking.
So I felt cool because of that.
Fair.
So you felt
Fair.
cool. You're like at this like big agency. You're like
Hey,
doing your
guys.
thing. You're like, and were you very good at your job?
I was so good.
Of course.
I was so good. And also I could work from home. They paid me $40 an hour, and I had come from teaching where I was not
You
paid
were
that
17
much.
cents an hour.
Exactly. And it was so fun and so easy. I'm like, I just have to get on the phone with people and
Yeah.
tell them about a job. Like, big deal.
Really quick. What's the deal with teachers getting paid so little? Why?
I can speak for private school.
Okay.
In private school, especially California, we get very little to no tax dollars.
Right.
So we are relying on donations and tuition.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at the how much it takes to run a class, you're spending about $20K per kid. Are we collecting that amount in tuition? No, we are not.
Right.
We have
Depends on the school.
Okay, 100%. And we do better in other places.
Yeah.
But, so you're getting teachers at a price that the school can afford. We have seen some uptick in California. We have placed a few teachers at 100,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like, oh, thank God, that's great.
Yeah.
But from the school's part, they're spending a budget, and they usually go way over budget on what's collected from tuition. Again, no government money, totally different than other states. And there's only so much you could do.
Do historically, like public schools pay their teachers better than private?
Yes. And also they have really good benefits.
They do have really good benefits. Right. That's right.
Benefits is huge.
Benefits is huge, especially I know for public school teachers.
It's amazing.
Well, I mean, for God's sakes, they should at least get that. I mean,
They should
it's
get
a
everything.
thankless job.
They should get everything.
I know.
I know.
We really abuse teachers. It makes me kind of sad.
Yeah. We can do way better with teachers. And at least when we interact with teachers, to have the respect and praise for them. Like, look what you people do. You people are amazing.
Yeah.
So they should be held in a higher light.
Yeah. Okay, I took you off your train of thought. What were you just saying? Okay, hold on.
Career, what were we doing?
So you were immediately good at your job. You felt very cool. You were doing your staffing thing. You were really good at it. I really just want to talk about the teachers thing real quick, but now I'm back. Okay, so
circle
how
back.
long were you working for other people for?
I would say 4 years,
Okay.
working for other recruiting agencies. And then it just occurred to me, I'm like, why aren't we servicing small business? So what happens with recruiting is the price is usually between 10% to 20% of the salary. And if you're a small business where you have 10 employees, you're not going to sit there and pay $10,000 to $20,000 for to find an employee. You're
Right.
just not. It's
Right.
not happening. And I knew that from my husband's small business, from my parents' small business. that those prices were not going to fly. And also with other recruiting agencies, it took so long. You would have a whole conversation, like, here's what we want. And then up to 6 months later, they would find people. It was like, what the heck?
And a small business can't go that long.
No, you're drowning in a small business.
Yeah.
So I made a Facebook page. At that time, it was called Estee Shoppo Jobs.
I actually remember that.
You remember that?
Estee Shoppo Jobs.
Yeah. And it was like a hit overnight. And so the first couple years, my goal was to close one job a week. And it quickly became a lot more than that. I don't want to give like exact numbers. I'm trying to remember. But it was very, very active.
Okay.
And then I hired an employee. I actually hired my niece, who was out today. She was my first employee. She worked for me for 4 years, which is great. And then it grew every single year. It doubled every year. I remember the first... Yeah, it was making like 100,000, then 200,000, then 400,000, and it just went up from there.
Dang, Gina.
Yeah, it was a hit.
So you instantly kind of had a sense that this was going to be successful, that there was a need. What differentiated you? What did you do differently?
I think I really understood small business, and I know what people were looking for, and I know how hard it is. And I think other recruiters are not from that world. Like, I know the grind of the day-to-day business owner and what will make them happy. And I also am very good at research. So looking into people's background, seeing what they're good at, finding people, using the right keywords to find people, all of those skills came into play. And interviewing people I also really liked because I like talking to strangers.
Right. You like always love talking to people.
I love a stranger.
And you're instantly disarming. So people probably tell you like just things they absolutely shouldn't.
Yeah. I usually say like, just tell me everything.
Yeah.
And because I do want to know.
Yeah.
You know, and people tell me a lot of interesting things.
They tell you everything.
Yeah. I also hold the secrets. So you can tell me like the biggest, craziest stuff and I will not leak it. So you're safe.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, my God. All right. And then, so that takes us to today.
Hello.
What do you think something that I've always remarked about you is that you just didn't give a shit. I mean, there's really no, like, there's no diplomatic way to say it. Like, you just never cared what people thought about you.
Nope.
You didn't give a shit. What is that about? How does one get to that level of not giving a shit?
Okay, so I've thought about this because I get that question from people who know me. Like, you don't care, but why don't you care? Why don't you weigh other people's thoughts and philosophies? Yeah. I was raised in Encino, and we were
we don't have thoughts and philosophies.
Oh, no. In Encino, you do, but they're different. Yeah. We were one of the only Orthodox families there, and we had no Eruv. So, like, our way to get anywhere in Encino, you're walking really far.
Yeah.
So I played alone my whole childhood. I had my cousins who lived next door to me, who we can talk about. But other than that, like, my world was very much alone. So I had many, many hours not playing with neighborhood friends, playing by myself, right? And doing my own thing. So it's not like I was looking around, what are other people wearing or doing? Nothing. That wasn't even a thought. So I think that huge amount of alone time was big. And I want to credit my mom because she doesn't get enough credit. She told me every day that I was the smartest, the prettiest, the best living creature ever created. And even if you want to like push off some of that, eventually I believed that I have a special worth and I'm a special person. And what other people think is just irrelevant to me. It doesn't matter.
That's crazy. I love that. I mean, I guess... So the antidote is just be alone a lot. It's very hard.
As a child.
I was just about to say, I think one of the tough things is like, as children, we're hardly ever alone.
Right. They don't have time.
Well, especially now.
Bad.
They're never alone.
Yeah. Just time to be yourself and do whatever you want. That builds a lot in your own skill and your own imagination and your own self-worth.
Self-actualization.
Yeah.
I'm just learning about that whole concept. But I
feel like you're pretty self-actualized.
Yeah, I do think, though, as a kid, I spent alone time.
Good.
Because a similar situation, I mean, we had, like, neighbors like you, but for the most part, because our it was a big town, and same, like there wasn't much you could do on like weekend. Like we played alone or with just the same couple of kids, but there was a lot of imagination time.
Yeah, the same 3 kids. You're not going to be like, oh, those 2 other kids have special hair. I need to copy their haircut. Like, who cares?
There's not a lot of competition.
Nothing. It's you and yourself.
That's, I think, one of the problems now is like these kids are so exposed to so many other kids at all times through the internet. Like class sizes are bigger. There's more, right? Like even from when we were young, communities have exponentially grown. Yeah. That's such an interesting, I just love that. I love that about you, and I look for more of that in my life. I mean, I guess there is a fine line to like not giving. You do give a shit about some things.
No, nothing.
I mean, what do you give a shit
care
about?
My children.
Right, your children and like your husband.
Yeah, I love
and is
my
that
husband.
it? And like making money.
I like all those things.
Right.
I mean, there's a few people I really like.
Right. But like, for the most part, like you literally like that's it. That's where it ends.
Gosh. I mean, I care about God.
Do you think that that's one of the secrets to just... Did you throw that in there just so we won't get mad?
I mean...
No, do you think that's like one of the secrets? Like genuinely, like you really have to keep what you care about so finite and so controlled?
My father once told me that I'm very much like a flashlight more than a spotlight. Like I focus my attention on certain things very hard and nothing else matters. And I am that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, that led me to having no hobbies.
Are you ADHD? Were you diagnosed?
ADHD, but I can concentrate on things for many, many hours.
But stuff you care about. That's like, I think, a very that's symptomatic of like, because I used to say the same thing. People would say you're very ADHD. I'm like, I could sit and focus for hours, and but only on things you care about. But then,
isn't that everybody?
Isn't that everybody?
What are you supposed to do? Just give a little glitter everywhere you go?
You get attention, and you get attention.
Right? No, like I'm gonna focus on my family and my work.
Right, but when you're young, it presents differently.
When I was little, I focused on my work, which was being a child in school.
Right.
And even when I was a counselor, I was super focused on it. I wasn't like, oh, let's stay out late. No, I'm a counselor. I'm going to do the best I can in this job, right?
Do you do the right thing always?
Does anyone?
Yes.
What's the right thing mean? Like,
are you a rule follower?
I'm not a rebel.
Okay.
So if you're like, here's what we're doing, I'm like, okay. I knew you were not going to stay religious.
I don't do the right thing.
That was obvious. That was like...
But how? I was such a religious little kid.
You were wonderful. You were awesome. But they would be like, do such and such. And you'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. Like it occurred to you to defy, right? And I was like, what do you want me to do? Okay. No problem.
No problem.
And if people speak about like, oh, I don't want to do the religious like sneeze, right? Like the modesty thing. I'm like, it's fine. I'm not gonna, make that a problem for myself.
Yeah. Because I remember that actually one of the things that came to me when I was becoming friends with you at that age, and I actually, it's just coming back to me so clearly now, is like, I remembered it was one of my first conflicts of being, I really like this person. She's a lot like me in a lot of ways, but she might be too good. Not meaning not too good for me. She might be too much of a goody-goody rule follower that like we won't be able to relate. Wow. And I had to sort of like process that. Like, can I have a friend? Because up until then, all my friends were kind of like
rebellious.
They were rebellious. Yeah. The friends I chose, meaning like, when you grow up in a small community, everyone was my friend, and I did love all my friends. Yeah. But like the friends I sought out were all like naughty kids.
Right.
But I really liked you. And I was like, but can I be friends with someone who's just like a really good girl who does the right thing always? And I had to like
process that.
Wow. Even when you came back, when you left for the summer, you came back, I was like,
I came back winter break. Do you remember that?
Of course I remember.
I slept over your house for a week, but that's so random.
It was very random. Well, we had a bond.
Yeah, we kept in touch.
So so it struck me even then that you were somebody who, really was just like, I sometimes feel like maybe life is just easier for people who have you're not, if you hear something, you're like, okay, I could do that.
Yeah.
Or even if I don't like it, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I didn't have the ability to do that. I didn't have even the capability to do that as a young person.
Do you ever push yourself to do things that you hate?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like that.
But I only developed that later in life. You had it young.
I had it young, but also I don't even know if I have the hate in me. It's like
That's the thing.
it's not even there. Like, who cares?
That's what I'm saying.
It's fine.
You're like by nature, just you're agreeable.
I'm agreeable.
I'm jealous of that trait. I think, you know what? That brings us perfectly. We talk about jealousy?
Let's talk about jealousy.
You have a theory about jealousy.
I do.
You want to say it?
I mean, hopefully I get this right. I mean, I talk a lot, so I think that jealousy can be a propeller to make you do things that are good.
Yeah.
If jealousy is separate from hate, then we're in a good place. So, for example, if someone has something you want and wish you had, if you can maintain the wanting for it, but not hate them and not despise them, then that will propel you to doing something else. I remember there was a movie once with Will Smith. Maybe it was called Happiest.
Oh, The Pursuit of Happiness?
Maybe.
Okay.
If I'm getting the totally wrong thing, then
No, I think it was
fact check
perhaps
me.
The Pursuit of Happiness.
He was selling like machines, right? Medical machines. Do you
relate.
remember this?
I relate to that movie heavily. He was schlepping machines around
Yes,
to
yes.
save his life. That was me.
Exactly.
Yeah, The Pursuit of
Exactly.
Happiness.
But he saw beautiful homes and he was like, how do I get that home? To me, maybe even jealousy is the wrong word, but to want something that you don't have, and I think it pushes you to pursue that thing as long as you can divide it from hating the person who already has it.
Yeah. I think they divide that up by like jealousy and envy.
Okay.
Jealousy is the healthy thing, the healthy emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Envy is like when you hate the person because there's something, it's not even a person, right? It could be an ideal, a fantasy. But instead of like, I think that's what the online trolls are, right? It's not jealousy, it's envy, or it's a jealousy they haven't worked through.
It's a dysfunction.
Because you
but
like
yeah.
jealousy.
I
I
love
remember when we
jealousy.
first talked about
Yeah.
this, you were like, I think jealousy is a good thing.
I just remember seeing different scenes in my life and relating to them very strongly and saying, I want that for myself. I remember watching my aunt with her daughter, how close they were. I remember my aunt wiping my cousin's nose and like putting Band-Aids on her. And I didn't have that type of relationship with my mother at all. And I was like, wow, God, one day when I'm a mother, I will wipe their nose. I will put Band-Aids on them. And that put a little seed in my brain, like that's what kind of mother you need to be. And even though you didn't have this at home, you can capture this for yourself and you can mimic it in your new adult life.
Yeah. So jealousy as a driver.
Jealousy is a driver. And anything you want. If you want a nice house, if you want a family, if you want a good friend group, like use models of what you see and try to copy. And it doesn't have to be people you know in real life.
No.
People online. You have people making sourdough bread all day. And if you...
I'm jealous of them because I'm like, I don't have patience to make sourdough.
No, but
But the
it's
truth of the matter is
amazing.
I never wanted to. I think where jealousy becomes a problem too, though, is like when you're looking at something that you will never have. Like, for instance, I have a problem with jealousy around like sometimes the way other women look. And I don't hate them. I don't hate them. But I like wish I was taller or had, or I was like, I wanted to be born taller. I have a real thing about that. But like, I think that's dangerous, and especially for young people, because there's jealousy that you'll never have it.
Right. That's
So that there's
like saying I wish I was blood type O. like, whatever.
well, I
like,
am blood type O.
You are?
Yeah. What are you?
I'm so jealous.
What blood type are
Be
you?
positive.
Oh, you be positive tracks. Okay. Right. Why did you want to be O?
Oh, you can donate to everybody.
Universal donor.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's magic.
You relied on blood a lot.
I did.
Did you rely on blood a
I
lot?
need blood. Yeah.
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 That's interesting. So,
Being jealous of something literally that you can't change.
Yeah.
Height is a good example, and blood type is another. Oh my God, blue eyes. I wish I had blue eyes.
you see what I'm saying? There's jealousy that leads to nothing. What do you do with those jealous feelings? Where do you put them?
You need to park those on the side. Because you know what? With your physical self, like God made you as pretty as you needed to be. You know? Like your face
To get the job done.
To get the job done. Like, you know what? I'm pretty enough to meet my goals.
Right.
It's fine. Like,
Right.
it doesn't have to be better than this.
So God
Park
made
it.
us as pretty as we need to be to do whatever our
To do our
like,
mission. To do our mission.
So like,
Just leave it. It's fine.
I'm now going to look at everybody and just sort of wonder what their mission is.
And if they're not good looking at all, then that wasn't part of their
That
journey.
wasn't part of their journey.
No. They are meant to do things maybe intellectually,
Yeah.
maybe personally.
Yeah. Did you look at other people growing up a lot, or were you pretty like? Does this tie back to your like? I was generally just happy on my own. I guess you didn't do a lot of comparing.
Nah. Like what? Did I think people were prettier than me?
No, in general, like I used to. One of the reasons that I think I sought out such a big life for myself and different than the life that I was born into was because I did a lot of comparing. I looked around at the landscape of where I was from, at the small town. I always knew that it was deeply problematic for children to be together with such a small, even as a young person, such a small group for such a long period of time, only having 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids for your whole. I knew, because I watched TV and I knew that there was big classrooms and big schools and friend diversity. And I just saw people so comparison, quite literally, jealousy was the thing that, oh my God,
like,
Estee.
You're like, I want a prom.
I did want a prom.
I know.
But it drove me to do like all of the things that I wanted to do and leave my small town and seek bigger. But what happens when you don't have that comparison? You don't like, it's interesting that you defied a lot of the things because you didn't even have what to compare with and yet still went after it. And I think probably I want to venture to say, did you go on to become, I don't want to use the word successful because I don't use that in a financial term, but did most of your friends sort of like follow the path of staying close to home and sort of like, or are they a diverse group?
One, I'm from Los Angeles,
That's
right?
true.
Even though I lived in a suburb,
True.
we all went to school in the city. So we weren't from a micro town. Once we were in high school, we were in the city.
Yeah.
So you automatically had the hustle and bustle of that, and people went everywhere.
Yeah.
In terms of someone who dedicated a big chunk of my life to my career, there's not that many of us who did that. Maybe I can think of maybe one or two other people.
Okay.
Right? But isn't that unique in general?
Yeah.
In the world?
Yeah.
For women?
Yeah. That is unique for women. What does success as a woman mean to you?
Okay.
Define a successful woman.
I think that you take the talents, you have to, define the talents that you have, know what they are, and use them to make the best world you can for yourself. Personally, I always wanted a family. I wanted to be married. I wanted to be married young, and I wanted to have a pretty big family. And then I wanted to have a career that really used my talents at their max, which is what I did. And I am proud of what I've done, and I do consider myself successful.
Yeah. So a successful woman is someone who's like living out what she wanted to do and using her talents as best as she can.
But people don't know their talents.
That's
what gets me. Like,
I was going to ask you that early on. Did you always, because you said, here was you so clearly articulated your skill sets. The skill sets that I knew I was good at was managing people, says, the immediate thought that came to my mind was, a lot of women don't know. Why do they not know? Nobody told them?
No, people don't tell you straight out what you're good at, what you're not, unless you have
parents
a teacher who like bags on you, right? Which we can talk about later.
Yeah.
But I think that whatever you're strong in as a child, do that. Like, I always made clubs, right? Where I was the boss of the club. That was a trademark to what I did. Wherever I was, I put together a club. I was always a head counselor. I was always a color war captain. Telling people what to do is what I did forever, even as a small child.
Yeah.
And if you think about yourself, right, you always made things beautiful. right? Even as a kid, clothing and flowers. And that's not new. You didn't discover that when you were 30 years old.
Right.
You've done that your entire life, correct?
Yeah.
And you've also been a leader your entire life, which I don't think you give yourself enough credit for that.
I do struggle around that. But I guess, because I have a front row seat to like 25,000 people, something that I've observed is that a lot of women weren't told, don't know, and even as young people didn't know really what they were very good at. A lot of kids fall through the cracks.
Right. They think they're good at nothing.
Yes.
And that's not ever true.
Yeah.
There's nobody that's good at nothing. It's impossible.
Yeah. Because I think that's also part of the reason that I think a lot of people spend a lot of their time online. They're looking for ideas, for inspiration, for how to shop, for how to dress. And one of the things that I think that this link culture is so prominent is because individuals really have not identified self yet.
Wow. Well, one of the things I don't like to listen to is a lot of podcasts. Wait, let me turn that. Because I don't want other people's view to dump on me. Right? Like I want to know like how to do something. I'll listen to that. Or like Torah thoughts, listen to that. Or like show me how to do X, Y, Z. But when someone's like, this is how I am, I'm like, no.
Right.
I'm not stealing from that. I want to steal from my own ideas. I want to increase what I've got. As a parent, what we all could do every day is anything your kid does good, point it out 1,000 times. You want your kid to say, you always say that.
Yeah.
Because you're like, look how you're a leader. You're a leader. You're amazing. Or look how neatly you set that up. That's so neat. It's incredible.
Right.
You find the smallest thing your child does right and say it 1,000 times. My daughter was saying to me, she's like, I need to go into sales because I'm so good at selling. Why does she say that? Because whenever she sells raffle tickets, whenever she sells any of these school things, she's very good at it. And I've said it to her 100 times. So that builds in herself a little box that says, there's something I'm good at and it's called sales.
Yeah.
Okay. And what every kid, even like, the biggest drag kid. There's something that they're good at. You just have to point it out. And even if they're not amazing at it, but they're sort of good at it, point it out. They will inherently increase their talent in that thing. And it could be so minor and just say it a lot. And for yourself, if something comes easy to you, that's a big signal this is a talent. And that could be something like you keep your closet very organized.
Yeah.
Not everyone can do that.
No.
That's a huge talent.
Keeping your stuff organized is a huge talent.
Yeah. Coming on time.
Yep.
It's massive, right? Mm-hmm. Anything, any small thing that you do automatically and easily, that's one of your hidden talents. And if you base your career on that talent, you're going to be very successful. If you fight yourself every day, like all these self-improvement books, forget it. Throw them in the garbage. Why don't we just focus on what we're naturally good at and make that a big part of our lives? Why am I picking the things that I'm terrible at?
Yeah.
I can't make airline tickets. I'm going to mess it up, right?
Interesting.
I'm like, oh my God, this is so annoying. You're going to land in the wrong place. Forget it. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to go read a book on how to do that.
Right.
Even if I work at it all the time and really focus, it'll be this much better. Why don't I just give that to someone I pay and do something else that I'm actually good at?
Yeah.
And that's with everything. That's with every single person. And it's, gosh, people call me and they're like, I'm not good at anything. That's completely not true.
That's what I'm saying. You think that it's an anomaly. You think that it's a standalone. I have access to people and I really have identified that there is a problem with a vast majority of people really not being able to identify. And it makes me really sad. And I guess I question, and this is where too, I think it comes down to somewhat parenting, somewhat self-actualization, like, right, it's not your fault, but it is your problem. At some point, your parents and your schools are not the problem anymore. And you have to figure out what you're good at because it's your job as an adult, right?
Figure it out. Mm-hmm.
But I often wonder too, what in this whole scenario of people not being sure about themselves and their abilities comes back to education and school system?
Okay, wait, I wanted to pause you before you said education and school system, like right before that phrase. If people literally don't know, there's a test called the Johnson-O'Connor test. It is remarkable. It is a 6-hour test. I am obsessed with it.
The Johnson-O'Connor test?
Yes.
Okay.
It is not, it's like $700, not cheap. I had my son take it. I took it and a couple of my friends took it. It is the deepest skill-based test that you've ever done. And it tests everything. You should take it because it's so cool.
I want to
Take it.
Okay.
And it will tell you literally what you're good at. And mine came out so obvious because I already knew. But not just that, it also tells you what degrees you should get, what jobs you should do. It really spits it out for you. And so if you don't have an understanding of yourself and you're like, I'm not good at anything, literally take that test.
Oh my God. Okay. I never even heard of this test.
It's amazing. There's one in Koreatown. It's across the nation.
I wonder if it's in person?
In person. That's why it's so cool because you're doing puzzles.
Is this what they make like divorced women do when they need to find jobs and like they haven't worked for like 30 years?
When people do these little career tests that are like filling out a question sheet, it's very basic. This goes so much deeper into your aptitude. It's amazing. And especially if people are floundering around. Floundering. Thank you.
Floundering.
Well, floundering. If they're floundering around, that test is integral because it will tell you. And when it spits it out to you, you'll be like, oh my God, they're totally right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited to take this now.
I'm excited for you. It's going to be amazing.
So I'm going to go back to the original thing, which is how much of what we've decided about ourselves do you think is put on us by educational institutions? Now, I'm going to be fully transparent. I'm currently in a frustrated state with educational institutions. So I want to like open this up to you because A, you have many years in education. You were a teacher, it's your background, and you're also on the board of a school. So you are extremely credentialed to talk about it. What do you think is the role of an institution if they're doing their job?
Okay. Our education system is very outdated, right? We're taking old skills that are not so applicable for today's day, especially with AI.
Yep.
And we are making sure that every child can do all the skills at a basic level. Reading, well, let's keep reading because that's important.
Reading's one of those.
Reading's,
Yeah.
Yeah. Writing, but I don't just mean writing. Writing in an essay form is like the ultimate goal. I'm not sure if that should be an ultimate goal anymore. Just saying.
Interesting.
Okay, just saying.
Math, then what should the goal be? Like just be able to articulate a thought, pen to paper?
Boom.
Okay.
Boom. Having a thought, articulating the
Having the thought sometimes is also a skill.
It's hard to have a thought. An original thought is like incredible.
Yeah.
Writing a good paragraph, I think we should be doing.
Yep.
But are we doing 5-paragraph essays? Why? Right. I mean, you can pump it out, but like, why are we doing that?
And you don't even need to anymore because AI could pump out a 5-paragraph essay.
Why are we even doing that?
I think the skill should be...
Vocabulary is good.
Vocabulary is very good.
Vocabulary.
But again, AI will take that over.
Right.
I think the important thing that I think for education systems is you're going to need to prompt AI. Mm-hmm. Eventually, it will become sophisticated enough in which it doesn't need prompts. For right now, let's deal with the here and now. It will live there. But you will always have to have an original thought in which to be able to articulate. So that's the skill.
Maybe what we should do is expose the kids to literature. And before we tell them anything, what do you actually think?
I love that.
That would be amazing.
So what's the school's job?
The job now is to get them to basic levels of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And by the way, history, we should really pump up the basics there because we don't know it.
Americans especially. Geography, like where things
I just got a globe.
A globe? That's really good.
I went to Home Goods, bought a globe, and I was like, wow.
Like where things are.
You don't know much.
So, okay, that's also, I will say that's also like a... particularly with some private schools, very low emphasis on history and geography.
Awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know the Civil War real well. The Battle of Antietam. So, but I know a big chunk of the Constitution by heart. I think that's good.
But do you think that it's the school's job to instill any
I don't want their morals.
Not the morals.
We're talking about
not the
public school,
morals.
private school. Where
Let's
are
say,
we going?
Firstly, I don't think there should be a distinction between public and private. Like, meaning
Yeah, there
so
is
much of what I just...
hold on. For morality in a public school, keep it neutral.
Okay.
I don't want to hear it.
Switzerland.
Switzerland wasn't so great.
That's true. Just the metaphor. Okay.
Thailand?
There is no...
Mexico.
Mexico stays out of things.
Let's go with the Mexican
And they give us
person.
such good drugs. So, public schools should be neutral. No...
Neutral.
Private schools should get to decide. I guess what I'm saying is so much of what I decided about myself as an adult was established in school.
How great was Morristown High?
Well, I didn't even go to Morristown.
Okay, how great was Hodgepodge High? Probably not great.
Right, no.
I also think that we need to have the basics of American society taught. Like the Constitution is a big one, right? Your amendments, that's a huge one.
Yep.
How about how we became a country?
Yep.
Like those basics should be pounded into our brains. You live here, celebrate it for what it is, or hate it for what it is, but you should know what it is.
So just education,
Yeah.
nothing else.
I don't want the schools teaching my kid. Again, if we're talking private school, then I do want the moral stuff. If we're talking public school, then I'm like, keep it neutral,
Yeah,
right?
I guess.
But good citizenship should be a thing.
That's true.
Respect,
Integrity.
integrity, how to deal with different people.
Overall, do you think the education system, private or, but let's just say private for right now, is doing a good job? That was telling.
We have schools that range from A's to F, right? There are some schools that are very, very good and they should be praised. And we have other schools that are a hot mess, right? I can't say every private school is the same. There's a huge range. California Job Shop, which I guess we'll talk or not, but the company that I own, we have I think right now 18 private schools that we hire teachers and administrators for. They're not all the same. Some of them will want a very high level teacher, and some of them will want anyone who walks through the door. It's a big difference, and we have to find people that cater to what they want. But our private schools are not all the same, and I'm sure our public schools are not all the same either.
Right.
I can't imagine that what we have here going on third. It's probably a pretty good school.
But I'm saying as a general rule, do you feel that the schools nowadays are adequately equipping
No.
our children for what? Okay.
No, they're not. I think we need to look at our current life and focus on certain things that have more value. And what that is very debatable.
Right.
But I do think your kid should come out of high school being able to write a paragraph, being able to do basic math, even with AI. We gotta know multiplication. We gotta know division. Basic
Agree.
fractions.
Yeah.
Basic.
Fractions, long division, multiplication, addition.
Boom.
Division, yeah.
Beautiful. And then knowing the history of the United States is a massive one that we're not hitting. People don't know.
I think you're right.
Let's hit those. By the way, the states and the capitals.
Let's
do
learn
you
the
know
states.
them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was a song.
A song is the best.
The song's is the best way.
Everything should be a song.
Agree. So,
One more thought just to add on to that. You have to give kids exposure to chemistry and physics or they'll never hear of it in their life.
it's true.
So we can't take everything out of the curriculum or they just won't have it.
Yeah.
Can I just throw in one fact because it's interesting?
Yeah.
My grandfather was a woodshop teacher for LAUSD for 30 years.
Wow.
And he taught woodshop. When they took woodshop out of the curriculum, that was very harmful for a lot of today's youth, right? We're still making things. We're building airplanes, right?
Sure.
So why aren't we teaching like metalworks, like a CNC machinist, like stuff like that, right? Why aren't we teaching that in high schools when a lot of kids are not really intellectual, but they're really good with their hands? Let them do that. That's just a side thought.
That's sort of where my whole thing is falling with the education system, because I'm feeling like if kids are academic, then they're excelling. And if they're not academic, then they're absolutely failing, which the messaging for children there is only a future for you if you're academic, when everything in our modern society has proven otherwise. I mean, everything, and our modern society has proven otherwise. So who are we preparing for the future if we're telling them that the only thing that you need to be good at is academia?
Yeah, it's a problem. And I don't think there's even a connection between A+ students in 12th grade and people who are successful 10 years later. Like zero connection.
That's a very interesting point.
Zero correlation, right?
Right.
So why are we even making like really like who?
Right.
Not who cares, but like
I don't even remember what my grades were.
They're irrelevant.
They're irrelevant. So there's no easy way to segue into this.
Hi.
Last year, 2023, you had something pretty life-altering happen to you.
I did.
You want to talk about that?
Let's do it. Okay, so I had a stroke April 2023, and that's typically surprising if you've ever met anyone who has had a stroke, because typically they are severely disabled, and there are people who die from stroke. So we went away to Cabo for Pesach and Passover.
Yep.
Yeah, translate. All right. So for Passover ended Thursday night, and my husband really wanted to stay in Mexico for Shabbat, stay there Friday, Saturday, leave on Sunday. And if you know me, I am not a huge vacation person. I want to go home. I want to eat my yogurt. I want to go to my jacuzzi. I want to sit in front of my fire.
Yeah.
I am not someone who wants to see everything in the world. I do go on trips because my husband likes to travel. So I said, no, let's just go home. We've been away for 8 days. Like, I'm done.
Right.
We went home Friday, and then Saturday night, I had to work probably for 5 hours because I do run a business and it needed my time. So I was on, LinkedIn doing my work. I was answering a million emails that I had missed during Passover. And then I'm getting ready to go to sleep. And what's interesting is that my husband was awake because he goes to sleep typically by 10 p.m. He actually wakes up at 5 a.m. to bike every morning, like 50 miles.
Dang.
Surprising, right?
Yeah.
I know. Hidden talent.
So he happened to be awake.
He was awake, and it was 12 o'clock at night. And I typically go to sleep between 12 and 1. That's kind of our habit for years. It's still ongoing like that. And so he just wanted to chit-chat with me, and my side of my mouth was like ruffled. And if you look at pictures that they show for people who've had a stroke, it looks drooped. Mine wasn't like that. It was kind of like, you know that emoji with the squiggly mouth?
Yes.
It looked like that. And, my husband's like, can you make your mouth straight? And I couldn't make it straight. And then he was just like asking me questions, and I could not speak. And so then he was like, Googling, messed up mouth. And I also couldn't text. So even though I could read and understand, I had no language. So he calls my sister, who's a nurse practitioner and lives in Israel. So she was up. It was regular. It was like, what, 10 a.m. her time? Am I getting the time difference correct?
Don't
Something like that. It was morning.
Oh, yeah. It would have been like early, late morning. Yeah.
And she works in an emergency room, so she knows about stroke. And so he calls her, and he's like, well, her mouth looks weird. But then, by the way, my mouth went back to normal. So my mouth was only bad for like 1 minute. You have to really catch it.
Okay.
And then she can't talk, and she also can't stick out her tongue. Like, I could not. And that's, by the way, a symptom of a stroke, for the record. And my sister's like, this is a stroke. Go to the hospital. And she hung up the phone, like very, very clear. So my husband's like, he says to me, your sister says gun it to the hospital. So I went to my closet to get dressed, and I could not pick out any clothing because my brain was stopping to work. So I just was looking at the clothes, and I didn't have pain. I just was like, God, what am I going to wear to the hospital? I was standing there for a while, not being able to make a decision because, again, I was losing brain cells. I was losing ability to process things. And he's like, grab things to get dressed. And luckily, we live right by Cedars-Sinai, which is the top stroke treatment in the country, world. It's It's the
Sounds about
best.
right.
It's
Yeah.
pretty good. Like people fly in from other countries.
Yeah.
And we got there in 7 minutes. It was in the middle of the night. And my husband was telling me that while he was driving, like, I'm never quiet. You're not going to drive in the car. I'm not going to have some commentary. And he was like, his hands were shaking. I was just like quiet. And we got to the hospital and right away they said, you know, what's your name? And I couldn't respond, but I still had my personality. So I was like smiling and, you know, trying to be personable.
No verbal ability at
Zero.
all. And how important is time in the essence of a stroke?
Oh, yeah. So I'll tell you. So do you want me to comment on the time or circle back? Because it's
Circle
really,
back.
okay, that's the most important thing.
That's what I'm thinking.
And also like all the warning signs that I think your audience must know.
Like I'm nervous because I'm nervous because you were wasting time in front of the closet.
Yeah, it was insane. Looking at the like, okay, so right away they realized I had a stroke. As we were walking to our seats to sit down in the waiting room, because the waiting room in Cedars is always packed. There's hundreds of people there if you've ever been there. And they called us in. They gave me a little book that had pictures of people and they wanted me to identify. And there were a few words in there, like I knew the word children. They showed me a comb and I was just like showing, like I had understanding, but I had no ability to speak. And they're like, this is so obvious. This was like a clear stroke. So they put me in a CAT scan where you could see the stroke on your brain. And they went out to my husband and they were like, this is a stroke. We can see it. We want to give your wife TPA. And TPA is a anticoagulant drug that can totally kill a stroke. And he wanted to call my sister to run it by her. And they're like, you're running out of time. You need it. The answer is yes.
What is happening in the brain when a stroke is occurring? Because a coagulation is like a gathering, like a clog.
Yeah. So it's a clot. So I had a clot in my brain and depends where the clot is. In my case, the clot was on speech, also on like decision making. So those were the places where I started to just have no ability, and it happens very fast. So they gave me TPA, which right away busted through the stroke. And then when I was in the ICU for a week. I was there a long time.
Wow.
And when I woke up a couple hours later, I could not speak like a normal person. I spoke like someone who was brain damaged. I was like trying to tell a story. You know, I'm making friends with a stranger, my typical behavior. And I was like, like that. Like every word was bad and not strung together. And like even pushing out every word was so difficult. It was like a baby learning to talk. Like you had to really work hard to get the word out.
Were you terrified?
I was hysterical because I felt my life was over. I knew I could not do my profession anymore. I could not run a business anymore. My children would not know me. I could not express myself. And the nurse was just like watching me, and I called my sister and I was like, I can't talk. And she was good. She's like, listen, you survived something. You're going to do speech therapy every day. You're going to get this back. Like, don't be afraid. But I mean, I was sitting there realizing like, God, I'm going to be disabled forever. Like, this isn't great. And it wasn't good. I was extremely panicked. And then I woke up a couple hours later and I could speak more. And I also I could get all the words out, but I had to, again, it's like this weird function. It's like working out strong enough to pull the words from your brain and to get them out. And then a couple hours later, I could speak fluently. So I turned to the nurse and I was like, you saw me panicking and I couldn't speak and you just kept quiet. You know, you're just watching me. I said, like, you couldn't say, like, sometimes it gets a little better, like, give it another couple hours. And so her response was that it doesn't always get better. And you're really, really fortunate that you're fine. In terms of time, TPA is only given within 3 hours from the stroke start to getting to the hospital. And the problem is that only 15% of people who've had strokes make it on time. And the second problem is only 2 out of 500 people who make it on time are able to get TPA because you can't be diabetic, you can't have high blood pressure, you can't be pregnant. There's so many reasons that TPA is disqualified from you. So that means that they're going to use some kind of other
Coagulator?
coagulator. And
Coagulant?
it won't be as strong.
Yeah.
And those people will end up disabled for life. For life. That's it. I would have had disability forever if I would have gone back to sleep, if my husband wouldn't be up, because stroke has no pain. So the parts of you that panic and react will not do that in a stroke.
And why is there no pain?
Because in your brain.
Right.
It's
not actually a physical. It's not like a painful thing that's happening to your body.
No, not
it's
at all.
It's a brain sort of
you
shut
feel
down.
fine.
Blood clot in the brain.
Yeah. So just like the symptoms of a stroke that people should know is if something doesn't work suddenly, a leg not working suddenly, a hand not working suddenly, not being able to speak suddenly, the sudden things with no injury, that is like run to the hospital, very likely to be a stroke.
Okay.
And
any other symptoms that people should look out for?
If you can't stick out your tongue,
okay,
that is also a symptom of a stroke. And then you have the drooping face. But again, my drooping face only lasted like a minute. So I could see like you just wouldn't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of miracles associated with this story. Do you feel that?
I feel that very strongly.
Yeah.
Like when anyhow, why I had the stroke, there's a part of it, right? I had in my heart it's called a PFO. It's a hole in your heart. It's actually extremely common. Mine was very large. Okay. I had a big hole in my heart that the fact that I just existed so long with that without having heart damage is impressive. Right. Yeah. And then I had gone on pill birth control for the first time. I always was a fan of IUD, but a lot of my friends took this special birth control because it gives them no periods.
But same with IUDs.
Well, I had the non-hormonal one.
You're taking because there's the pill birth control that you could just skip over the.
Yeah, that's a fun time.
Seasonique?
It wasn't that type, but it wasn't that brand, but same type. A lot of people are on it.
So you just started an oral contraception.
Correct. And then I had the stroke immediately after. So that.
How soon?
6 hours.
Women are going to absolutely panic now and all come off the oral.
You know what? Good. Okay. Panic, because you don't want this happening to you. And I would say if you're going to take oral birth control, great, amazing. Make sure you don't have a PFO first.
Okay.
That's all. When I was in with the heart surgeon, he was telling me, like, how did you not know you had a PFO?
And don't dentists always ask that? So I'm surprised as a dental family, because dentists always ask you if you have that.
Right.
Why?
Okay, there's a few things. One, the only dental work I've ever needed was like a cavity.
Oh, of course.
As a child.
Of course you have perfect
right.
teeth.
I've been from that family, right?
Right.
So I never needed extreme dental work.
Right.
Also, people who've had a C-section, they check for PFO. So if you've had a C-section,
or intense dental work, which I've had all my life.
Or intense surgery.
Right.
Any surgery, they're looking at your heart. They're like, you've never had an EKG. No, I've never had one.
So it's not necessarily an oral contraception. It's also a pill birth control and a hole in the heart.
Yes, that's the combo of killing.
So I don't want women everywhere to start panicking.
Okay.
The combo of killing, did you call it?
Yeah, I mean,
oh my God.
If you're going to be on any medication that the side effect is clotting, okay, which is a lot of medication.
A lot.
Tons.
A lot.
That's
coagulation.
Yeah, exactly. Then you cannot have a PFO.
Yeah.
And doctors think that you already know if you've had one or not, and you won't necessarily know unless you've had a surgery and had an EKG.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was just wandering through life with no surgeries, and I had this. So, yeah.
So I have to ask. What's changed for you since you cannot view life the same way?
No.
What are the main things that changed for you about the way that you've observed about yourself or life?
There's so many changes. It changed my whole mind.
Yeah.
One, I also read a statistic that the amount of people who survive 20 years after a stroke is 1%.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice.
So we're on borrowed time.
Yeah.
No,
I
you're
feel
gonna
like
beat the statistic.
I'm a rare case. We'll give
Yeah.
me a little credit for that because I
Yeah.
was so young. But 1%, it's pretty small.
That sounded good odd.
No. I mean, I am a 1%er. Ah!
Your mom did tell you were special.
So special.
So what's changed? What shifted?
So many things. Number one, I've always believed in afterlife and I've always thought about afterlife. But when I was in the CAT scan thinking like, oh my God, I might die. First, I was like, okay, I'll see my cousin who I lost last year. But the feeling of I'm not ready at all to die. I haven't done what I want to do. I haven't fulfilled my mission. I haven't lived enough. That shook me up a lot. And the fact that my little kids, who at the time were 2 and 5, would not know me as a parent, because if I was dead, I was dead. And if I couldn't speak, I couldn't speak. That also really hurt me. So I took a major leap back in my work. I now work about 15 hours a week. I still oversee the recruiting, but we have a CEO now. We have 10 employees doing their thing. But I kept a lot of time for myself and for my children. And I wanted to be able to take time off. Like I'm looking forward to Passover this year, God willing, to take the full time off and not be always on my phone checking on everything. And then I have this sort of feeling that like the glove of life is not as tightly on. I want to give a.
I'm going with this.
Okay, it's not as tightly on as I thought it was. Like
Yeah.
I feel a little bit removed from life. Like
In what way?
Like I'm watching
Interesting.
more than getting all up in it. I mean, I probably need therapy, to be honest, but like,
Or maybe that's in a good way. Like maybe you're not wrapped up in all of the nonsense because you have a broader perspective. Maybe you're observing it as someone who's just wiser, who's experienced something pretty life transformational rather than someone who hasn't, who gets caught up in all the minutia.
I mean, that could very well be.
I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're removed from your emotions around
No,
it.
it's more like the little things in life and how human we all are. That really stuck out for me. Like everyone's
Like the people are peopling.
people are peopling. People can be petty, and people are they're just doing their feelings, and they're doing their best. That really stuck out for me. I also find when I walk down the street, I always look at the tops of the trees. That's been like a new habit, like just gazing up and noticing the world has been really big. And I also think an understanding of disability, which I never really understood, hits home for me so much more because I had those hours where I was disabled, and how difficult that is to manage your life in that way. That really hit home for me. So I'm trying to live deeper than I had, and to really connect with the people I care about and spend the time and have more time for myself and more time for my own thought instead of being so constantly busy.
Wow. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. That's powerful. That's a huge shift. I guess the why you brought up the leaving Mexico is because had you stayed in Mexico, that would have...
Bye. One more thing about stroke. They don't have TPA in every hospital.
Right.
They only have it in large hospitals. So you can be in a little dinker town and, God forbid, have a stroke, and they don't have TPA. How insane is that?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So you want to...
What's the most likely outcome if you don't have TPA and you have a stroke? Death or...
If you catch it within, let's say, 6 hours, disability. I would not be able to speak. Okay, I would just be a person with lots of thoughts and words, and I could not speak to you. I couldn't, and that would be a tremendous loss. it would, the communication, the lack of understanding. I mean, that would be devastating.
Yeah.
If you don't catch a stroke quick enough, you're dead. So both bad.
God.
Yeah.
So you have like you're on life 2.0.
2.0.
What's next for you?
What's next for me? I mean, I wrote a book, right?
You did?
The children's book.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Okay, what is the children's book?
I wrote a book which touches on all my recruiting experience and all my teaching experience, all my parenting experience, that there's a teacher who's worried about her first grade students, that they're not, an exact fit for the classroom, and that they have certain talents that she's just concerned about. And then it fast forwards 20 years later, where all these things that she was worried about became their life's purpose and mission. And I think that will be very powerful for our children, for our parents, for our teachers, just to
I love that.
spell it out.
Is it out? No, is it?
It is not out. It is now being illustrated.
Oh
That
my
can
God.
take.
I want that book. I'm literally that child, and I'm raising that child and watching her struggle through school,
Yeah.
fully knowing that like who she is going to be so far outweighed by this, these little subjects that she's learning that she's either strong or not strong in. And that like, I mean, right? Because isn't that the ultimate message? Like all the
that
stuff
is the
the teacher was
message.
worried about, like really have very little to do with the outcome of these children.
Exactly. If we fast forward 20 years, this stuff is all irrelevant. As long as your child is focusing on what they're good at, instead of feeling like a failure and just thinking that they have no ability to do anything. That's what your child needs. Your child needs to hone in on their talent and embrace their talent. And again, the things they're bad at, whatever, irrelevant. Do the stuff you're good at.
That's a perfect place to end. Estee, thank you. Thank you for that. I never heard the story in such detail. I mean, I'd heard from you. I'm in awe, like just you're a walking miracle. B, I'm so proud of all the work you've done just with your business, with your family, as an individual, with your growth, with just watching you. I'm inspired by you. I'm really glad you stayed alive.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy that we did this today.
Thank you for having me. You are the best. Do people even know how cool you are? Do they know? Are they aware?
I'm trying to convince them. Thank you, Estee.
Have a good day.